always deep fry it.
That's so good.
Yeah, you definitely can't cook it like you normally would.
No, I know, I know. Usually, I stay up and cook the
Let me go ahead and start the meeting. Okay, so we're unmuted and we're calling to order the Plan Commission Administrative Meeting. We do have a quorum in attendance, so I'll go ahead and call the roll. John and Ray Randolph.
Here.
Edward Ullman.
Here.
Jeff Morris. Here. Scott Harris.
Here.
Margaret Clemens. Here. Cheryl Munson. Here. Okay, so we have 6 members attending in person and a quorum.
Thank you. And we'll annotate the record once, or if Julie, Commissioner Thomas and Dee Owens arrive. Okay. Oh, and Jerry Pittsburgh, yes. Okay, well, with that being said, we have one item that's been crossed off the agenda, and that is a discussion of breakdown of assessed land in each proposed zoning district. But the first item on the agenda has to do with administrative business, and this regards a citizen application for plan review committee. And I would like to try to limit this as best as possible to 15 minutes, this discussion. So is it you, Ms. Nestor-Jelen, who will lead the discussion? Sure. Thank you.
So we received 2 applications for the Plan Review Committee. They are in the packet. So the first one is for a David Jenner, and then the next one, starting on page 5 of the packet, is for a Jason Bell. Both applicants are located in the county jurisdiction, and so this is a Plan Commission 1-year appointment. We changed the meeting calendar at the last Plan Commission meeting to cancel the next few Plan Review Committee meetings in order to give us time to see if we could get citizen applicants and appointments made to Plan Review Committee. So the next Plan Review Committee, I believe, would be in June. But it is for the Plan Commission to decide whether they would like to approve or deny these applicants to the Plan Review Committee.
So just to clarify that, because I had a question at last meeting asking if this was a plan commission appointee role, and it was communicated that it could be a commissioner's. So to just really clarify that, this is discretion of the planning commission to appoint the citizen members, and which I thought was the case, but we haven't had too many over the years, so.
It is. I apologize. I was, because the application is through the commissioner's office, I misremembered that fact, but it is a Plan Commission appointment.
I'm just glad we're able to straighten it out, and now we actually have applicants to entertain, and they've gotten to us, so thank you so much for that.
Yes. And for the record, Ms. Owens is in attendance as well.
I guess I have a question. Are we looking to just look at the applicants, or are we looking to take any official action today? I guess
What's in front of you is the full application, so you would be able to take a vote today if you were ready.
I guess I'd ask our acting president, or I don't know, you're president today, right? Our vice president of planning, president of the admin meeting. What was your goal today?
I was going to discuss these and see if we wanted to take an action today. And so, Mr. Ferris, you have a question or a comment?
Are we opening a period of time for the applicants to submit their applications? I mean, right now, today, you could take an action vote for 2. Okay, and how many vacancies do we have? 3. Okay, but if we don't have a period of time to consider all the applicants, so I'm just asking, should we open the application period for 20 days, 30 days? You've already postponed the meeting till what, you said June? So I would offer that we probably should open it up for a period of time.
And publicize it and make it.
Well, they've sort of been publicized, but I mean, there might be more people out there.
I think that's a very fair comment and way of proceeding. I'd be in support of setting a deadline and then looking to appoint the people after that deadline has passed. I think that's very.
But I still think we should discuss these candidates.
For sure.
So.
I'll let the record reflect that Commissioner Thomas has arrived, and I don't know if Mr. Pittsford, Dee Owens is on line now. I don't know if Mr. Pittsford is. So let the record reflect that they are now in attendance. But I am in agreement with Mr. Ferris about opening it up for a period of time. He suggested June. I don't see a problem with that. But also to solicit perhaps other applications from other members of the community. Yes, Councilor Munson.
So I don't want to talk so much about schedule, but about the format of the applications. And we use the standard county board and commission application. And it does allow people to send in a resume and provide, or a letter and provide other information. But I don't feel like we have very much information about either Mr. Bell or Mr. Jenner, because they just filled out the application and that's sort of it. They each gave a brief statement. And perhaps that's enough for other people, but it doesn't feel right to me. And that's because I'm very jealous of the Plan Review Committee, having served on it for about 7 years and knowing how important it can be in the planning process, both for the department and for the applicants.
I think that's a very good insight and comment. I too felt that the applications were a little sketchy and a little.
But that's not their fault.
No,
That's ours.
that's true. That's true. So is it possible for you to reach out to the potential candidates and ask them to supply information as for a resume and a letter as to why they'd like to serve? Yeah,
And to thank them for applying.
yes.
Yeah,
The executive committee can interview people too if you want.
that's very good, Julie. Ms. Thomas, I like that.
I like that too.
Just do it on
I would-
Teams or something quick.
I guess I would only ask is we get a list of people. I mean, sure, we can back it up at the exec committee, but I hope the end goal is we have some candidates that we're going to at least entertain to appoint into that role. Let's say we only get 3, right? Regardless of qualifications, then the question comes up, are we wanting to continue to have this plan review committee, or are we going to appoint the people willing to serve to see how they kind of move into that role and, provide a benefit? I mean, I think anyone from the public could give us an insight that could be very valuable. So I'm just kind of curious of how many candidates we end up getting. And as long as that entire list is given to the full plan commission, if there's need to take additional interviews at the exec level, sure, but that's kind of closed the doors for a lot of the other plan commission members. And I would like to be more involved in some of this to make sure that we do what we need.
Interviews can be public.
Okay. I just want to, I love the idea, and without Jerry bringing it up last time, saying a lot of the reasons we have the plan review committee is to get that feedback from citizen members. And I really hope that we end up getting members that want to serve. We have 2 now. If we extend the deadline to June, we might have a larger list. We might still end up with just the 2. We do have 1 in the room, so I'm sure if we wanted to allow some type of, comment period for them to kind of express their interests, their experience and things, I think that would be helpful. I do think if we send back, we want, a resume and a letterhead. It's not that big of an ask, but that does start turning it into, maybe a little more than people want to commit to. Maybe at least just a letter, a statement of why they want to. A resume kind of seems like they're applying for a job versus trying to serve as a citizen appointee.
I would offer that a resume has everything you need.
You would, yeah, true. I just don't want to make it.
Don't make it too hard.
Or too easy, right? And there got to be a little bit of a balance there. So that's kind of my extent of my comments.
And Councilor Munson, you had your hand raised?
I had another question, and that is, by delaying this till to June, in what way are we impacting the process for the various applicants going through planning?
I would offer that we just do it for 30 days.
Mhm.
I would say that if the first meeting you said was going to be in June, if in fact we reinstate this. So I think you just open it up for 30 days for an application period.
So-
Have them submit their resume, and at the next meeting, we could take and do the review,
And
something like that.
Commissioner Thomas, what do you think about that?
Whatever y'all want to do. All good. And I think last time it was said that the commissioners choose, the commissioners do not pick this. This is a group that advises the plan commission, so that's up to the plan commission to choose who they want.
Okay.
Jackie,
So we'll
I'm
bring
just
it
seeing
back.
a little red 6 there. Is there comments or hand raised or something?
Teams.
I didn't know.
Unless I join late.
I didn't know if maybe there was some comments or a hand raised or something. This is.
No, I've been keeping track of the
Okay,
chat.
sorry,
It's just
Tammy.
administrative.
It
Okay.
makes a noise if people are trying to get into the meeting, so.
Oh,
Okay, so the discussion on this is closed. Let's move on to the CDO work session, and I believe that Mr. Martin is going to lead this discussion, so it's good to have you here. If you come to the table
I
and
guess I have
join
a
us.
point of clarification with the discussion closed. I'm not sure,
yeah, what did we
What
settle on?
direction, like,
What was the final?
I'm a little lost if planning understands or.
We were going to open it up for more applications, and we were going to ask the two candidates to submit a resume, and we're going to leave it at 30 days. Is that what everyone understood?
Mhm.
Okay.
Sure, I wasn't sure if June or 30 days, so that's the one area I was a little lost on.
So,
Thank you.
so the next admin meeting will be actually voting on these.
Mhm.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Martin?
Okay, I am Richard Martin. Wow, back in this room again.
You're not sharing the
For those of you
screen.
who are new, I served on the plan commission for many years and was the president a couple of times. I am now the president of the Monroe County Redevelopment Commission. We were asked about a year ago to look at some proposed zoning maps that included areas of interest to the redevelopment commission. One of them is in an existing zone where we have employment designation. And we have, in fact, this TIF district, we collect fees from the added value. We use those fees to support the development of infrastructure. The commercial area that you have on this is in the, I think it's called the Northwest Park development. On the screen, as you can see, this is in the extreme northwest corner of the what we call the West Side TIF that runs all the way from 3rd Street north up into this little corner up here. There is a manufacturing facility that exists in this part of the TIF. That's the white building that you see there, which has been in operation for many years now. We have had, at least when I was on the plan commission, proposals for other commercial development in this area, which had not come to fruition at this time. But it is one of the only large tracts of land still in our TIF for which we could cite new employment opportunities. And we would not like to see us lose that opportunity for revenue generation to support TIF activities or to support new employment activities, which do require fairly large expanses of space for any kind of major manufacturing activity. We have several smaller pieces within this TIF that are still available. We have been aggressively, the biggest one previously was the area which was formerly the Westinghouse manufacturing facility. And we now have most of the lots in that particular area of the TIF dedicated to employment opportunities now.
Most of the ones north of Third Street have been consumed in one way or another, variety of uses. But this is one of the areas that we would really like to make sure we have available should someone come along and need a fairly substantial piece of property. It is serviced with utilities. It is essentially ready for acquisition and development. We just would really not like to see us losing it as an employment opportunity. And I think that rezoning it to a non-commercial activity would make it more difficult for us to utilize the property in the future. And that was the position of the redevelopment commission. And we sent you a letter indicating the parcels that were included in that particular thing. I think there are like 3 or 4 in aggregate. They're included up there. Two very large ones and a couple of small ones. Well, that's the first one.
Are the smaller ones contiguous with the larger ones?
Yeah, they're just little slivers or pieces that are attached to it in one way or another, I think.
But that same general area?
They're all contiguous up there. It's just one great big block.
So just to clarify, Richard, on this one, it's currently zoned Ag RR with the business industrial overlay.
Right.
And it's proposed to be Ag 2.5, but you would like it to be, or the redevelopment has petitioned it to be zoned light industrial. Is that accurate? Okay.
I think that the parcel where the factory is it light industrial now?
This,
Yeah.
yes.
Yes, I think it's light industrial. I think all the parcels that have been developed in there are light industrial.
Yes.
And this one was set aside for the overlay, but we haven't had anybody come in yet. Zoning it as a light industrial would make it more likely that we would have somebody come in. These businesses are very sensitive to cost of engaging in development, and whatever we can do to ease that, we would like to do. We would probably end up providing some kind of infrastructure support if we had a use that was viable in this area that required that much facility. We still have some bonding authority available, despite the fact that we're spending an enormous amount of money to put a bridge over a railroad track that gets used once a day. The other parcel, our area we had, is north of Arlington Road. We have for some time been considering how we as a redevelopment commission could provide some kind of opportunity or incentive for affordable housing. The TIF districts that we have now are all commercially oriented. There is, however, in our North Park TIF, an overlap with the North Park PUD, which has a substantial residential component to that PUD. And we have in the past considered how we might split up that PUD into an essentially a commercial component, which is the area along 46, south of 46, and a residential TIF component, residential TIFs being something which were introduced into the state a few years ago, which allow us to capture residential value for the purpose of providing infrastructure support. The commercial TIF does not capture any residential increase in value in the TIF area, with the exception of certain kinds of very large apartment type structures. But most housing does not provide additional value in a TIF district, so we don't have resources available to support that housing. For example, we couldn't run a sewer line specifically for a residential use. We would have to pair it somehow with the increase in commercial value that it would generate for us. So there is an area north of Arlington Road. And when we looked at this concept of taking part of that PUD and moving it into a residential TIF, it became obvious that we needed a bigger area to think about. And the area between the PUD going north cross Arlington Road and then up towards the existing residential areas north of Arlington Road seem to make sense to us. One of those is a very large piece of property, which sits kind of, you can see it as the heavy green area there, which you had slated to zone to a less dense area than it is currently zoned, we believe. And that would make it more difficult for us to get any kind of residential development on it at the scale that we would need to make a residential TIF opportunity viable. To the north of that parcel, there is already residential development on lots. To the south of it, there is residential development in the subdivisions, south of Arlington Road. To the west, you've got residential and commercial development, and to the east, you've got a highway. So it is essentially surrounded by higher and more intense uses. And it didn't seem to us that down zoning it to a less intense residential use would help facilitate its inclusion as a residential TIF candidate. And we would then have to, there are a lot of pieces of property, there's a lot of small pieces of property along Maple Grove Road that we included in this area too, because we needed to make sure we had everything covered on. The TIF has to have contiguous property in it. And we thought that this would, while we have not made good progress on creating a residential TIF, this is still a potential candidate for us to do so. We will talk with you later maybe about another candidate perhaps. But we just wanted you to consider that this looks like more intense use opportunity and one of the few that really exist and is already surrounded by residential development all the way around. So that taking it out of that would make it more difficult. I will point out that whatever residential development we could put in there that would be supported by the TIF still has to come to the Plan Commission for approval. So, and I would assume it would come in some kind of PUD form, which would give you the opportunity to do all various kinds of criteria applying to the property to make sure that we maintained it in a suitable state. There's a lot of vegetation on the property. There are some slope issues on the property. I mean, it's not like it's a slam dunk for major subdivisions. There are very suitable areas for development on that, in that area. And we thought that it ought to be thought about as a potential. I said, we haven't done anything with it yet. We have had an inquiry from a adjoining property to the west about doing some residential development, perhaps working towards affordable housing. But as you may know, affordable housing is very difficult to do. It does require some level of investment on the part of the public to make it happen. And the residential TIF is one of the few options that's available to the county to do this. But it's still, we're a long way from us getting it done. Those are our two cases we're making to you.
I'd like to ask a question of the director. If you know, there's been so much emphasis on affordable housing and it's a noble cause. And I am hearing from various actors in the community of multiple projects being planned, you know, which is good and noble. But do we have any kind of assessment as to whether or not we're balancing out other types of housing needs? Because I think within the last week, I've heard of 5 separate large affordable housing unit developments that are being proposed in our community, and
In the county?
in the county and in the city.
Okay.
And I don't know where we stand on an inventory of affordable housing and how we're managing that, which ways they're going to be funded. Mr. Martin just mentioned a residential TIF. I don't know exactly, Commissioner Thomas, how the one on South Walnut Street will be subsidized. But I think some of that comes from ARPA money, is that true?
Right, for the infrastructure.
For the infrastructure. And then we have, I've heard of several other ones that have not yet been announced. And I just don't know, I've heard about a report of the ROI housing study. I've asked for copies of it. I haven't received it. And it's hard from a planning perspective to actually conceptualize whether or not we're overbuilding one type of housing and what impact that might have on our total property tax revenue structure for the county long-term. Do we have any?
Just to clarify on type of housing, do you mean the type of construction or the price point?
Well, the term affordable housing is widely used, but when I think of affordable housing, it meets the definition standard that the expense to the homeowner should not be more than the 30% of their monthly income. And so to build that type of housing seems to me requires subsidy. And I don't know exactly what's being planned, how many units, what is our exact need, and whether or not we're foreclosing the opportunity to build, homes for middle-class executives in our community. I just don't have a grasp on this, and I need more clarification in terms of the numbers and in terms of the projects, because, until today, I had never heard about this particular TIF in this area. And our information is imperfect and going forward in the CDO planning stages. It's hard to make a CDO without knowing some of this information, although, it's kind of interesting to learn about it now.
I think the letter that I sent indicated that that was our concern. That was because we were thinking about including it in a residential TIF.
That was our primary discussion in regards to where a residential TIF would go in regards to have contiguous property, contiguous to our boundaries and create us a problem and the potential possibility of infrastructure. Is that a correct statement?
Yeah.
That's Richard.
Yeah. We have some capabilities in that area that which would allow us to think about doing this, but as I said, we haven't gotten very far. I mean, it's a very complicated problem. And because of the way TIFs operate, we don't want to get started on a plan we can't execute.
Right.
And until we have the pieces in place, there's nothing that we can reasonably do. We are, however, against a timeline because the existing TIF has a fixed end date, and we've got to figure out how to use the resources we have available within that time constraint, or we have to split it, create a new TIF, do other things. So that's
What is that fixed date?
about 10 years from now.
10 years from now?
And that's on the existing TIF that is setting over on Arlington Road at the present moment.
Well, it doesn't go to Arlington Road.
Well, apologies. Yeah.
It's essentially the northern boundary of the North Park.
North Park PUD.
Yeah.
It could be somewhat helpful, just to speak about the facts of the existing TIF, and if there's no debt obligation in the annexation process, without the TIF actually having an obligation, those properties will potentially be annexed into the city, correct? And without a debt obligation on there, that TIF will essentially
That's correct.
terminate, evolve. Mr. Cockrell has his hand up. I've been following this for quite some time.
There is a debt obligation on that.
There is already.
There is.
Okay.
You're going to see the Hunter Valley Road
Okay, so that,
Connection, and that was done through a TIF. Yeah.
okay, it's just, it's interesting how the TIFs kind of are formed and how there's certain aspects involved, so that's a non-issue. I was gonna say that that could be something that, you know, for our consideration, if we needed to make sure that that TIF was obligated because of the annexation.
It's not, that's not our job.
Not our job, but it's a bit of how it works, so I think it's good information to understand. Also, you did come to us and speak about that residential TIF, why the state legislature were talking about removing some of the guardrails, and I think one of those is the school corps need to kind of sign off on some of it, and so that's not really an issue. So your goal is to make sure that if this is something that redevelopment commission wants to move forward with, they don't have to come back here and petition it, and you have some predictability of how to proceed, so you don't kind of end up spinning your wheels and ending up in a spot where you wasted a lot of your time and effort.
Right.
Okay.
And there are a lot of unknowns about residential TIFs
Right.
at this point. There are a couple of that have been put to use in the state, and we're trying to get more information. For example, we don't know what we can capture in terms of assessed value, whether it's only from new residences or whether it's from commercial that happens to be in the same vicinity and within the boundary. We just, a lot of questions.
Like if there's a mixed unit development, for example, we don't know how that's captured.
We don't know how much of that's going to be done. The bond council says, no, you don't get any of the commercial TIF valuation, but that's for the purposes of issuing a bond.
Yeah.
It may not mean that we don't get it, it's just we can't use it to pay a bond, to commit ourselves.
Right.
Well, Mr. Martin, would you be so kind as to tell us the two other instances in the state where TIFs have been used for residential development?
The only one I can recall offhand is I think it's in Warsaw, Indiana.
Warsaw, Indiana. Up near Zimmer?
I'm sure there's another one, but I don't know what it is right now.
Okay, thank you.
One of the concerns I've had about a residential TIF is that, while I understand the structure of TIFs, you know, it's to encourage development, by putting in infrastructure, and that makes sense, that's great. But one of the concerns I've voiced when the commissioners have discussed this is, creating, if we create a residential TIF, in my view, it has to be something where there's an income related qualification to purchase a home, to be eligible to live in that area, because otherwise the person is going to benefit from the infrastructure that is added to that area is either the developer, who then has a cheaper build but probably charges whatever they want for the house, don't blame them. Or we force the developer to sell at a lower price the first time, but then the house flips and it's, you know, the price triples or doubles, and we can't help that either. So these would have to be, you know, income qualified housing, and that would ensure that it's affordable, because one of the issues that Ms. Clements raises is the fact that we have builders and developers who come to us and tell us about workforce housing, like who, you know, unless you're talking about a retirement community, everyone else is working. So workforce housing is kind of a weird term. But workforce housing, and they tell us a price point, and then they build, and the houses start 50 to 100 to 150 higher than what they claimed at the outset. Well, some of that could be inflation, some of it could just be, hey, the market. This is what capitalism is, I get it. But, you know, we don't have those, you know, we have price points when we talk with Habitat for Humanity on South Walnut. We can get price points. We know what that's going to be. We have a developer who's also it's a public-private partnership thing. And, you know, they tell us what they're going to charge for homes, but we don't really know that that's what the price point's going to be. So it is very difficult to track. It is very difficult to track.
Exactly.
And, you know, we also have to remember that the city is looking at Sudbury and some other very dense housing units, which is where the density belongs in the city. You know, 4,400 to 6,000 units at Sudbury, et cetera. they're putting in, and if that ROI number, if I buy the ROI number, and if that number is 7,000, well, that gets us very close to that number, and it's within 10 years. So now what, right? What sort of, and I think we do a disservice to our community as a whole by not having a diverse stock in housing, by not being creative with tiny homes and everything else. That's an option out there. I think we should be more creative, and I think we should offer a range of housing stock that is diverse in its size, in its property shape, in its formatting, in its goal, in its intentions, its locations. I think we owe that to our community. So it's difficult to do though.
And it's potential revenue, because we are essentially designing a city that pushes the tax base outward. We're not sustainable anymore.
But the property tax doesn't change if you add 1,000 homes, one home, or 10,000 homes.
No,
You
but
make the same property tax. It is the income tax that changes.
Yes,
So if you build housing specifically for students, and most of those students are not working, you have one thing going on with your tax base.
and the same is true.
Right? I mean, so.
The same is true with property tax. If you're putting 100 units on the same parcel versus one, and it's the same property tax, that's 100 more people you need to serve with community services that cost money that cannot be reclaimed by property taxes.
But they're all contributing toward that whole
Yes.
pot of money, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I want to end in this discussion, remember that the redevelopment commission does not zone property. It does not permit any kind of construction. That's what the plan commission does. All we do is look for and manage ways to capture the taxes from increased value to support the activities within that district. And by and large, that has been constructing roads. Historically, that is about all the TIFs have done. And they have done it pretty well. We've managed to do well, and we are being able to do some projects which are desperately needed in the community because we've had this opportunity. Whether we can do that successfully in the residential arena, I don't know. But I know if we don't have land available to put into a TIF for residential use, it's not possible. We can't even, there's no reason for us to even think about it. Because of the way bonding authorities work, which we don't control.
One additional conversation question, it's because we're talking kind of more regional, which I absolutely love. I think we need to do that more often when we're considering PUDs, large developments. One comment first before I go to the question is, with one of the TIFs program with Dean Watson, we're able to create a brick and mortar for their STEM program. So outside of just roads, there are other aspects of a TIF that are very successful.
For many years to RDB's STEM programs, which have been phenomenally successful.
That was my first acting role as a plan commission member.
And we're gonna get Ellisville a new fire engine.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's all, there's a lot of benefit, but residential TIFs are new, and that's why it's a long process. So aside from that, we use North Park, right? And I just wanted to make sure, and this is, can be a very quick question or if no comment, but as far as the area we're looking at, with the commissioners going to the council discussing a location for the new jail, this is not the same area that you were considering for a location. Okay, I just wanted to make sure, because then that throws in another wrench that I think we need to consider, because all of those things will come through the plan commission at a certain point and for a separate day. So thank you, Richard. I guess, what is your direct ask? What zone are you looking for this to fall in?
I would just make it consistent with the zones that are around it.
Okay.
I mean, I think that's essentially what we're looking for, is we're not looking for anything new or different, but we don't want to make it more difficult than what's around it already. And those are fairly, I think those are all, they're on septic, so they're pretty large lots to begin with. We would be able to, if we had sufficient density up there, we'd be able to probably contribute some to sewering, but our primary investment would probably be in roadways.
Okay. And Jackie, do you know what the minimum lot size is for the surrounding stuff? And
And Counselor Munson has her hand raised.
Yes, I was thinking along that particular line and wondering if they're zoned for septic and the minimum size for septic would decrease the number of lots.
Oh, yeah.
So should you be asking to have it zoned the way the surrounding lots are zoned?
I expect the surrounding lots were created before we had the current minimums for septic.
Right.
So they are going to be smaller lots
Okay.
that have septic systems. One of the things that we would mean from the perspective of the redevelopment commission, if we're going to do this and provide some kind of residential capability, I don't think we're going to think about it unless we can sewer it.
Right. I'm hoping you will.
And that would be kind of a precondition for us and probably something we would have to support. We could get a developer to do the on-site sewering, but that line that runs from there to that plant at North Park or down to the connector to the city's north
They go to
plant,
North Park.
we would have to be doing
Right,
that as
right,
part of
but-
the bond issue, I'm sure.
But that package plan, depending on what else goes on in North Park, could potentially handle that. And I mean, right now, that package plan is underutilized.
Oh, yeah, very much so.
So, but it could potentially take that on. It's not like you'd have to build a separate package plan.
Right.
Okay,
It's just it would be the infrastructure of the piping to
Sure.
to and serve.
sure. And pumps
And
and
a couple lifts,
lifts and whatever.
probably 2 lift stations and I
Yes, Commissioner
I
Jones.
just have a quick comment about the, not this residential TIF area, because now I've already expressed my feelings on that, but the LI area, that's currently Ag RR.
yes,
Okay.
with the overlay.
Yeah, but we're gonna probably get rid of the overlay because.
That's,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think that's
So
what prompted us
That's what
to,
prompted this, yeah. But it seems to me like this is one of those things where staff can be cognizant of what's going on and, you know, kind of keep on top of things. But it seems to me that we want to try to encourage that kind of LI development at Profile Parkway, right? And so
No,
as that
She was-
fills up, why not then rezone? Why do it now, right? Is there something, because
we are almost out of land now for Profile Parkway.
we've had one petition.
No, you've got McAllister taking to the south. You've got U-Haul taking the corner.
That's the one.
You've got, there is somebody using the other part.
Right.
And we've got one vacant area and it's not nearly as large as any of the others.
Okay, that's the
It's,
issue.
it's,
That's what I'm
it's the
asking.
size issue
It's the size issue.
that we want to
Now,
deal
on
with.
top of that, this land has karst features. It is not, it's not ideal land the way that the Profile Parkway land is ideal. So that's an issue for me.
Yeah, no, we're aware of all that stuff and you deal with that as part of the planning process.
I think Mr. Cassidy wants to speak.
No, just on the Profile Parkway area, I mean, it's ideally set up for an employment situation. Roads are set, and there's, I think, 2 lots like Richard on that. But the environmental constraint or perception of it has created an issue over there, is part of the problem.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Can I just make a quick, Randy Cassidy is also a member of the redevelopment
Yeah.
committee. Sorry, guys, so I just wanted to make sure
Yes.
everybody was aware of that.
I can't, thank you for speaking up. I can't see you, so I can't really turn my head. If you want to come to the table, you're welcome to, over by Julie.
Good.
Thank you.
Good to have you.
Thank you, Jeff. Yeah, Jeff Cockrell is the attorney for the redevelopment commission. But this is very helpful to have, to know what your ideas are, because we really don't know. And the communication with us is treasured, and we appreciate your taking time to come to us and speak with us about your vision. And that's very helpful, very helpful.
So as far as the CDO draft zoning map, if we're looking to the plan commission to provide us with some guidance if you'd like us to change what's currently on the CDO draft zoning map. So as part of the RDC's attendance, I believe that they would like these two properties to be changed to be zoned light industrial. And then if I understand Richard correctly, that these properties would be zoned more in line with what is to the north, which is proposed to be medium density residential. Would that be, and you said suburban density or 1 acre lot size as well, but would you be thinking this was all medium density residential?
I'm sorry?
Would you want this all to be zoned medium density residential? Is that the request?
If that's what's surrounding it, yes. We just,
Medium density would have a minimum lot size of
Point, that's a point and a half or point 2.1? Point 2.1 is medium.
Medium.
it's,
Yeah,
I mean, I don't think you need to make it. I would expect this is gonna come in as a PUD.
Yeah.
yeah,
What's gonna have to
We
happen?
don't have, so we don't have to worry
Yeah,
about
I don't think we should be doing this
Right.
because because
Okay.
of that reason, also because if we do a residential TIF, that's a whole,
Other thing.
other things.
I
Okay.
just,
Otherwise, the land could be taken for other purposes without the vision that Mr. Martin has eloquently articulated today. And so the way we kind of preserve that opportunity, I think, is to not change it. And I don't know if that's accurate or not.
This creates the problem of how do we get a bonding authority to loan us money to put infrastructure in a place that you can't build anything? They won't do it.
so the.
It's one of
It's
these,
cart before the horse.
which thing has to happen
Okay, so
first?
that's the question. Do you need the PUD first? Do you need the residential TIF first? What do you need first? I don't know the answer.
Well, I think we need some evidence that the county is agreeable to residential development in this area. That would support,
And how do we indicate that?
I gave you an option, make it some kind of residential density, something that would be a residential density.
Well, the
If
one
you're
of
gonna
the-
make it really so that you can't develop it as a residential area, then it becomes problematic as to whether or not we can sell anybody on a residential TIF for the area.
Well, I'd like to just say that one thing that speaks well of the Plan Commission and of the county commissioners is that how the number of PUDs that have come forward and have been approved. We have approved, for instance, the Westgate. We have approved Southern Meadows, even though as it's being built, people are saying that it was denied. I don't understand that. But that being said, we've approved a lot. And I find that our planning staff is very helpful. And although certain sites have, constraints like complex sinkholes and floodplain limitations, for the most part, I believe our county staff is really easy to work with. So I don't know, you would like us to just change the zoning right now in the CDO in order for you to be able to get bonding that could maybe take place in 10 years, is that it?
What is the zone right now? 2.5?
So currently it's zoned RA1,
Right.
Oh,
this area.
okay.
Currently, it's RA1.
Okay.
We're asking that it stays essentially that.
All right.
You could go to suburban density, which would be, or the 1 acre density, and then
Fine.
north of that is medium density.
Yeah, let's leave it.
Okay.
I would ask though that as you're thinking about it, there's a large section of that property that's pretty heavily wooded. And
Oh,
if you
yes.
can leave some of that intact and put in some high density
Well,
housing near it, that would be.
that's not our decision. That would be.
I understand that. Well, but I don't know if that fits with a plan for a TIF. I just worry about that.
No,
It's a shame.
we worry about that as well.
Yeah, okay.
Just 1 minute, Mr. Enright Randall. What was your question,
So-
Councilor Munson?
So if you're asking about density in these areas and wanting to preserve some forested land, can you not have part of the PUD more dense than others and use the undeveloped land as part of the calculation for density?
Jackie, can you do that? Can you take a plot of land like this and differentially zone it so that some plots require more acreage than others so that the trees could be better preserved or something?
Are you
Or
talking
it
about
wouldn't
if
have to be
PUD would come forward?
differentially zoned, but it could be looked at collectively.
Sure. If a PUD were to come forward, they would have to allocate a certain amount of open space, which we would encourage them to use the
Yes.
forested areas. I think what's being discussed now is whether it would just rezone this entire parcel or have it stay consistent with what the current zoning is, which is 1 acre lots.
Yeah.
But if they were to then take that zoning and propose a change to PUD, they could do something like that under the PUD.
Certainly parts that are not developable. They're well
Right,
aware of
no,
that.
there's, yeah.
So,
So just so I understand the order of things, we leave it at 1.
mhm.
Let's say we get a residential TIF, we do a housing, affordable housing limitation on it, an income qualification on it. Then a developer would come to us with a PUD request at that point, knowing that's in this TIF and it would have to follow these rules.
Well,
we would
I don't
just-
believe the TIF itself could impose any qualifications on the development. That's not something I think we can write into a TIF. But you can certainly, when you review it, stipulate that.
Okay. Well, but I guess what I'm asking is we would be waiting then, once a TIF is created, the developers can then come in and create a proposal for a PUD, and then that's when we hear it again.
Right.
Got it. Thank you. I just want to make sure I
Right.
understood.
Okay.
And I guess, Jeff Cochran with the county legal department, I would just add that, you know, when we create a TIF and we actually formally create it, there is a limitation on that TIF. I believe it's 20 years for a residential TIF. So, you know, I don't think, or at least I wouldn't recommend to the redevelopment commission that we would create a TIF without having some knowledge as to somebody's interested in working on some of those ideas prior to it, because then you're gonna, you know, residential TIFs particularly, they aren't like the commercial TIFs that we do where somebody's gonna build a building and they're gonna have it built in a year or two. It would be developed over stages and over time. So, you know, if you start that clock too early, then by the time you're done, well, your TIF's already been over for 5-10 years and you can't utilize the increment financing as it's intended.
Great.
Thank you, Mr. Cockrell. Mr. Enright Randall?
Yeah. I'm glad we had the discussion because when I raised my hand and half of my questions got answered. So just for the chart that we're clearly looking at, and it says proposed zone acreage, and it's talking about moving all these to Ag 2.5. Is that what the comprehensive plan had? I'm not following this, but I remember talking about this quite extensively several times at the ORC. And is that proposed that we're looking at, column 1, what's actually coming from the comp plan, or is that from discussions from the ORC moving forward? Because if that's the case, I understand why we're having the conversation today, but what I remember is that what did I guess my question is that second column where it says proposed, is that coming from our comprehensive plan when you were looking at it for these designations? So
the methodology for reviewing the CEO draft zoning map includes looking at the comprehensive plan, looking how the property is currently utilized. We also took into account the consolidation of the zones from 45 to 16. And then we also looked at environmental constraints as well, but we are trying to fall in line with the comprehensive plan.
Because at one point, I thought we were actually looking at keeping it at the RE1, but I guess I might have had that backwards, or maybe from other conversations that the proposal changed, but it seems like we have more consensus on leaving it as is, which then was the redevelopment commission's main concern is if we downzoned it, then it gets lumped into that minimum 2.5. So it seems like, I'm just trying to follow along. I feel like I kind of got a little dizzy over the course of discussing this particular area. So I just want to make sure I'm really clear on what this chart is suggesting. Is it based off the comprehensive plan, the feedback that you received from the planning commission, or are you trying to reconcile all of those things into one proposed recommendation?
I think the latter. This is zone conservation residential under the comprehensive plan, so why it was carved out amongst these other residential areas from the north to the south. I'm not quite sure if it was just based on the agricultural use of the property at that time. But if you would like to have us go ahead and keep in line with what the current zoning is and make it 1 acre, we can do that.
And I would like to just ask if Ms. Owens or Mr. Pittsford or if anybody else who is online has questions.
We heard you. That was, you said no, nothing, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dee. Mr. Owen.
Jackie, real quick, can you speak again about what is that, the housing development to the north of that? What is that currently zoned as?
It's zone RS2, so it's half acre lot sizes currently.
Okay, and then the development along Arlington there, is that all zoned RS2 as well?
Yes, so, sorry, RE1 is along Arlington, so you could.
RE1, so that's the 1 acre sizes.
Yes.
But then in the comprehensive plan, we've changed that development to the north. We're changing it to the comprehensive.
CDO, you're saying,
yeah, the proposed one.
Yes, and the proposed CDO, this is changing to medium density. So the yellow here is medium density. The green is ag 2.5, and then this brown color is the suburban density 1 acre lot size here. So this is surrounded by 2 different zoning types, residential zoning types.
And the medium density is zoned at what? Half acres? Medium density.
0.21 acres, the minimum lot size for medium, and suburban density minimum lot size is 1 acre,
Okay.
and ag 2.5 does permit residential, it's 2.5 acre lot size. That's
So we have a mix. So if you look at those 3 areas we just talked about, the acreage for the properties, it's a mix between those 3 areas.
I think the recommendation was to neither upzone it or downzone it, to leave it as is. And yeah, and to just leave it as is. And then the PUD will recalculate the density as soon as all the infrastructure is more well-known and more well articulated. And so, so that's what, is everyone in agreement with that here at this table?
I have one
Yes,
comment.
Mr. Enright Randall.
One comment, and it's, I'm in agreement to like show that, you know, there's a potential for a residential tip for the REC, but if this comes back as a PUD where we need to put a septic, every residential on septic, I'm really not gonna support it. I'd rather come back in 10 years when we have a better relationship with the city and they get connected to sewer. I'm adamantly against the idea of putting in 100 more septics in this area, and I think we should abide our time, consider that factor, and if it looks like we could maybe eventually get, you know,
It's just speculation, let's just say.
a service letter, or, I mean, there's a number of different things. It's not speculation. I'm giving my stance on this right now. If I'm here and it comes in front of me and we're looking to hook them all up on septic, I'm gonna be adamantly against that because I think we need to figure out a way that needs to be hooked up to sewer.
Right, and I think that's exactly why Mr.
Right.
Martin is here to talk with us about a residential TIF.
Just sharing my thoughts.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, is there anybody else who would like to have comments on this? Mr. Ferris, you have been quiet.
I have nothing to say.
Mr. Morris?
I agree with keeping it as is.
Yes.
So it'll be remain at that suburban 1 acre instead of what is currently proposed of the 2.5.
Yes, if we could get a quick roll call, that would be helpful.
Okay, perfect.
Want to make a motion there?
I'll make a motion that we,
Keep it as is.
just looking at the neighboring lots, because when I'm looking at a satellite, that little peninsula right in the dead center to the left of the cursor, and then everything that's on the west side of Maple Grove Road, I feel like needs to be all included in that big lot as well. Not what's on the east side of Maple Grove Road, but what's on the west side of Maple Grove Road.
That's a historic area, and I would just focus on what we focus on here. You guys have
That's a
that other
different
stuff.
discussion, Mr. Ullman.
Okay. Well, I mean, it's all in the same overlay, so it's not a different discussion, it's in the same overlay. But I don't know, how do you identify that unit?
Okay, could I just make a kind of a guiding motion, and if people would like to change it, that they're welcome to do that. Today, we had a discussion with the redevelopment commission, and Mr. Martin came and he very eloquently articulated his development goals and vision for the area. By and large, I believe that the plan commission has been persuaded to leave the zoning in these plots that have been brought to our attention by the planning staff at the current zoning density. And I'd like to make a motion that it remain at the current zoning density. Is that clear enough?
Yeah, I'll second it.
Okay.
Open that, see if I could offer a friendly amendment.
I'll go ahead and call the roll. This would be to make sure that the CDO draft falls in line with the current zoning for each of the areas that were outlined by the RDC on the Arlington Road area. A vote yes is a vote to make that amendment.
And I have a point of clarification. When you mean saying there's a multitude of different minimums in there, so they'll stay the same, so we'll have some that's RE1 and some that are still Ag 2.2 with the highlighted, please. Okay, and I just wanted to clarify that.
Right.
Okay.
Okay. Edward Ullman,
Yes.
Julie Thomas.
Yes.
Jeff Morris. It's a little bit
There's kids in the background.
difficult to hear you.
The audio's messed up.
I don't think she has kids.
No, she has a doggy.
No, that's not a dog.
I think your audio might be cutting out a bit.
It sounds like you just sucked in a helium balloon.
Put your thumbs up.
Okay.
I have to log off and log back on.
Yeah, it might have you reconnect your audio. Okay, sorry. Edward Ullman, Julie Thomas, Jeff Morris, Scott Ferris.
Yes.
Mark Clemens, Cheryl Munson,
Yes.
Trina Enright Randolph.
I'm gonna vote no with just a comment. I'd rather look at them all and move them all to the RE1 versus just leave it as the same. So with that, I'm gonna say no.
And then I believe Deowens was symbolizing that she was in agreement.
Yes.
Okay. All
Okay.
right, so that motion carries. And then do you want to take a vote on the North Angelina Lane properties today about those staying Ag 2.5, or would those be recommended to change to light industrial?
I personally think I need to drive by it before making a decision.
I'd be willing to make a motion to change them to light industrial right now.
You can make one.
I make a motion, we change the North Angelina Lane properties that have been brought forth by the redevelopment to light industrial.
I'll second that.
We can hear you now.
Yes, we can hear you now, Dee. So it's been moved and seconded to change the draft CDO draft zoning map on these two Angelina Lane properties as shown on the screen here from Ag 2.5 to light industrial. A vote in favor is a vote to change those to light industrial zoning. Julie Thomas?
No.
Jeff Morris?
No.
Scott Ferris?
Yes.
Mark Clement?
Even though I would support this, I agree with Mr. Morris that I'd like to take more time to go out there. Even though I was there recently, but I'd like to look at it again. And so for that reason, I'm going to abstain.
Cheryl Munson?
I tend to support this, but I haven't been by there for a couple of years, so that seems like the wise thing to do. I'll abstain as well.
Dee Owens?
No.
John Enright Randolph?
I'm the last one.
No, Edward is.
I passed.
Okay. Edward Olman?
Yes.
Okay. Is that abstain?
No, just passing. I'll vote.
Okay, go ahead.
I'll vote yes. The motion's gonna fail, so I'd like to make a new motion. That's why I wanted to go last. Sometimes people just jump in there and you don't even have the ability to have a conversation. So I'd like to table this to our next admin meeting, giving everyone an opportunity to go and visit the site. And then also, if the planning commission thinks it could be beneficial, maybe you could do a field trip out there. We've done that for some of these in the past, and then that could be beneficial for me. I don't need to, but, you know, but my motion is to table this to the next admin meeting to give everyone time to visit the site. That's my motion.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to table this to the admin meeting.
Can you give the results of the first motion?
Sure, it was 3 no, 3 yes, 2 abstain. So a vote yes is a vote to table this to the next admin meeting. Jeff Morris?
Yes.
Scott Ferris?
Yes.
Margaret Clement?
Yes.
Cheryl Munson?
Yes.
Dee Owens?
Yes.
John Enright Randolph?
Yes.
Edward Olman?
Yes.
Julie Thomas?
No.
Passes 7-1 to move this to the admin meeting.
Okay, do we have any other business to discuss? I
I hope so.
don't know what's on here.
We have
Oh, the zoning name discussion.
yes, so we have a question for you all. So moving on to the next item. Thank you, redevelopment commission. for
Yes, thank
attending.
you. Thank you for coming.
What about the South TIF idea that Jackie invited us to this meeting to discuss?
Yeah, so I talked with Jeff a little bit before this meeting. Thank you. So one of the things that I would like some guidance from the plan commission on is whether an invitation that I've received from the redevelopment commission is to attend their meeting and talk about residential TIF districts and creating those. Is that something that the plan commission would like to see me or planning staff attend and discuss that further? Is it?
Sure, is the plan commission also invited so that we know what's going on? And, I mean, there's so many moving parts in this, and I don't know how we can be responsible in our roles unless we also are included in the conversation.
Sure.
Yeah, our invitation is to the planning department. How you fulfill that, it's up to you.
Okay, and we can also invite or have joint meeting with the plan commission. I think.
Well, and I will tell you, this is prompted by the new developments that are occurring in that area where that road and Rogers intersect and on Walnut Street Pike, where there's potential opportunity, but we would need to think about a much larger area. And does such a larger area exist? Is the question the redevelopment commission has to the plan department.
Boy, this is kind of late. I mean, with all these projects we've approved and not approved, and now we're hearing, I don't know, it's just government at its best, I guess.
I think having a joint meeting periodically could be beneficial as needed.
If any topics
Yeah,
that we
because
discuss a
we have to
redevelopment.
be mindful of not accidentally creating a quorum if one is to attend your public meeting. So I think we want to at least express the fact that if there are plan commission members that want to attend the RDC meeting, we have to be very mindful that we don't accidentally have 5 members because that will constitute a quorum.
We just advertise, that's all.
Or we advertise a joint meeting and then we all can attend. I know, I just want to make
We'll
sure
advertise
that
it, it's not a problem.
we're all aware of
We
that.
have room on our next agenda.
Our next agenda is the annual reports.
Right.
Yeah, that won't work.
So that is typically the longest. Again, I think if plan commission members want to come and listen to it, I think it's probably one of the most informative meetings of what TIF does and what they're doing. So I think it's really good for everybody to be aware of that. But I
Dial in.
But I do think that it's typically a 2-3 hour meeting to begin with, and this conversation probably would add to a point where we're all delusional at the end because we've been sitting there.
Would there be a situation of having a scheduling meeting that works with everybody's schedules to specifically just discuss residential TIF?
And also, it seems like there's separate visioning going on. And I don't know how, if there's separate visioning and we as the plan commission are in charge of kind of mapping that vision, the pieces aren't fitting together, you know? And so it's not fair to the people who serve on this committee. It's not fair to the community. It's not fair to the RDC. And it's not fair to kind of the maligning nature of the public now over the people who are in these roles. It's not really fair to us.
We could consider a special meeting, special joint meeting, I suppose.
Or-
Getting schedules together is the hard part.
Okay, so if it's okay if the involvement is with the planning department, then we will reach out to anyone on the plan commission.
Perfect.
We'll do a joint meeting and happy to advertise that and work together on that.
I'll reach out to our members and see if we
It'll
can
be
find
recorded
a reasonable time.
Yes.
Thank you, Richard.
Yes, thank you for extending communication. It's very helpful.
Thank you for your help tonight. Really appreciate it.
Thank
Thank you.
Cheryl, you have a question?
So I wanted to go back to something that was said earlier that was coming to introduce.
Yes.
And that is, there are a lot of proposed projects going on, under consideration, and, I think we are not well informed about this. I would like to have a status update. I'd like to have it be current, updated routinely.
Yes.
And I think in that case, this can be certainly the county is something that our planning department can handle, but it would be valuable to us to know what the city is well. And then we're all operating from the same set of facts.
Exactly.
And I think that's important.
I agree. Mr. Ferris?
So you have crosstalks on a regular basis with the city planning department.
Not as regularly as we should, both very busy, but we do coordinate.
With the new mayor and the new administration.
I typically only coordinate at staff level.
She's suing us.
And they only have. Yeah, Jackie doesn't want the role. She just.
So I just want to be clear on the ask, Cheryl. So a status update on, so I guess I just want to make sure that we're all understanding, and maybe this is part of the status update. So there's projects that can be proposed and approved. And then there's actually projects that are under construction, and then there are projects that have occupancy. And so there's kind of 3 different levels. Sometimes projects that get approved never get to occupancy.
Yeah.
So are you asking for a status update on what gets approved at like a plan commission or council level? Or are you asking for like what the building department provides, which is like an inventory of how many houses were constructed this year.
I think each of those categories is meaningful,
Yes.
Okay.
okay?
And the building department does have a report.
Yes,
Now
it does, and we just saw their annual report, yeah.
Yes, Mr. Paris?
I would argue lightly that you need to do that probably twice a year. And it's just a big picture.
Yeah, I was
Just give us the big picture status of all those categories, so from a puzzle standpoint, we can see how everything fits together. I mean, I've felt that for some time now. We're just kind of like throwing stuff up there on occasion without understanding the master plan. How a master plan is happening.
That's why I did my own inventory. I had to do my own inventory, and it's just, that's not the way, and I don't have information on sale approvals. I have no idea when they expire.
So Jackie, what I would recommend is either it's January of the calendar year or the first year of the fiscal year, or the first month of the fiscal year.
January.
And then, right, and you do it 6 months later. It's like a mid-course.
January
You just do
and
2
June.
updates of the master, whatever these categories are, to give us the big picture.
So I think what is being asked for is a lot right now, given everything that's going on, but at the same time, it's necessary given everything that's going on. But the good news is, I think once we have this information, that the 6-month update should be fairly easy to do,
Yeah.
right? But it's just getting to that point. And I don't know if you have enough staff to do that, and I need to take away from time on the CDO or something else. But at the same time, I kind of would like to see it before the CDO. So how far back are we asking staff to go? I think we need that clarity.
I'd like to know every single approved PUD that could emerge from, like a zenith from its sleep.
do they have a half-life or something?
Yeah, anything without expiration date, it makes sort of good sense, for sure. It might be very hard, I think, is what Julie's getting at.
Yeah, so
trying to
I think
find
we
all
need
that
to be very
information.
clear
Yeah.
that we want a list of open PUDs that have not been built yet, right? Open meaning they're built, they're created, the PUD's created, but
Yes.
nothing's been done,
Right.
or not, or partially done.
Right.
And then as petitions go through, if somebody can go through council and or commissioner, city council and or commissioner meetings and look at what's been approved, just what's been approved, how many units,
How many units is?
have been approved, I think that would be helpful. And then I think if the building department can then take that information and merge their information into it in terms of where the permits have been drawn, and they could mesh those two things together, then it's not like we're trying to
Really?
reinvent the wheel, right?
It's like a dashboard.
Yeah.
For
There should be
residential
an ongoing,
development.
there should be one.
Yes. So building department reports I have access to.
Right.
I'm not too concerned about that.
Right,
Open
but-
PUDs in the county, obviously, we have records for. But
Yeah.
how many units have been approved at like council, plan commission, commissioners? How far back do we go?
That's what I'm curious about. And I guess what I'm saying is rather than you, because the reports don't have the detail, the granular detail of which development it is. So if you hand it over to Bobby LaRue in building, he could put those things together, I think, for you.
Mr. Paris?
In other words, you have a list of all these places, addresses, hand them to Bobby and say, where are permits been pulled on these? So that, because
I'll get it.
their report does not, it's just the aggregate, it's not granular. So that, whatever's easiest for you, I just am trying to make this less like intensive for your staff work versus getting help from someone else. And how far back do we want to go?
Are you wanting to include sliding scale subdivisions, minor subdivisions, which are usually 4 lots and less?
Yes.
Yeah,
Probably.
things we don't see, things we don't necessarily see.
Well,
Yes, Mr. Paris.
We probably should.
Mr. Paris has,
Go ahead.
had his.
Okay, I just have 2 points. One, it'd be helpful to know if what we're asking is in the art of the doable. Okay, I mean, we're creating a monster here from your standpoint. And what is the art of the doable? And if it's not doable, what is? So these things we're asking you to do, what is realistic for you and your staff to compile? That's one. The second thing is relevancy with respect to the city. Are there things going on in the city, on the fringes, et cetera, which might play into some of these areas of the county?
Yes.
Okay.
There's some pretty big ones.
Yeah, and whatever that is, and that would hopefully come from those periodic crosstalks you have with the city's planning staff.
And I think the city has something where if they don't execute at a certain amount of time, then they have to come back through. So that might give you a good indication of how far back you need to tap into.
So what would be, I guess my question to the plan commission is, let's say we put together this report and it gives us various information. How is it, what is it that you want out of this information to help answer the CDO? Is it because you're looking for vacant land left and how to use that vacant land? Is it like zoning it?
Mr. Enright Randolph, you're eager, I know. So let's go with you and then we'll go with Commissioner Thomas.
Eager?
Jump in there then. Jump in.
Jackie, this is a huge discussion, and I think we need to be very deliberate and of what we're asking, very upfront of what can be done. Mr. Ferris's points. I think, having something that dates back to at least 5 years will be a very helpful, just to put some type of, time frame there. But I think what would be most valuable, absolutely most valuable, and one of the most probably doable situations is start figuring out how to track this moving forward. And we do have more tools available to make it a minor task. And as we see petitions come in, we start flagging them and putting in some content, managing our own kind of development layer, if you will. So you can kind of generate these reports on the fly instead of doing what you're gonna have to do and kind of go through physical records and compile immense amount of information. So from my point of view, I think putting something in place where we can move forward and manage it would probably be the biggest task, but kind of probably the one that will bear the most fruit, because in 10 years, we'll have all of the information that is being asked today without spending 5 years trying to put it together.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Thomas had her hand raised.
I think why Jackie's asking the question she's asking is because she wants to know why we need this information. And my answer is because we continue to hear from people who say you're building too much of X housing versus Y housing, or we need more housing, or we need more housing here versus there. I think if we have a clear understanding of what's in the pipeline, it will help us determine, oh, we need more small lot subdivision, or we need larger lot subdivision, or whatever that is. But how we do that, I think if you ruminate on it, talk to your staff, figure out what you think is doable, easiest to do, easiest to keep up with, whatever I would just be interested to see what you would propose we could do to get something like this going.
Could I just ask, I see Drew and Tammy here, and I wonder what although I don't mean to undermine you, Jackie, but I would like to hear from Drew and Tammy what they think.
I mean, I think PUDs is a hard one to dig into. That will be most time consuming, because some of those things were drawn up by the city so long ago and just plunked down as a sketch without even looking at environmental constraints. You're already maybe not even gonna be able to get density in some of those areas. With regards to like the sliding scale minor subdivisions, easy to tell, I think, how many lots have been created over the last X number of years. But digging into like how to figure out all of those occupancies, like how many of those have permits have been built out, that's time consuming. And it's scattered all over. So maybe focusing in the Makua area, urbanized area, rather than that. I don't know if that makes a difference, if it's rural versus more of the urbanizing area. I'm looking at minor subdivisions that are not there. but the occupancy part and like being able to cross that over various databases. We have our OpenGov database, and then we have our old system, which is Excel spreadsheets.
Yeah, that's right. I forgot about that. Yeah.
Archives.
Yeah, the archive system.
What do you think is the oldest PUD that was approved that could still be built, that we know nothing about? Like how, do we need to establish an ordinance that expires some old PUDs or something like that?
Point is our oldest, it's 1973.
The point. And is it completed?
No.
There's portions of it that could be built out. We had one that's recent that we're built out. So once you start developing on a PUD,
May not
it sort of vests it, and so there's different legal requirements for expiring the PUD. Now, if we did all this work, I would ask that we at least make it so that in doing that research for PUDs, the Plan Commission tells us, okay, let's go ahead and try to expire this PUD to get rid of it and zone it something else that we, have in the county that's comparable. That would be helpful. I didn't want to cut you off.
You're right, Cruz.
I understand
See how the little.
reason for you wanting this information, because more information is certainly helpful for making decisions. But I echo what Tammy and Jackie have already said about some of the information is going to be relatively easy to compile, while other information is difficult and time consuming, especially with consideration to occupancy. I think what really comes down to is how we want to frame this information. And also, I think moving forward, it might be best that we provide something to you as a starter, and then you provide your input on that. If it hits your goals, perfect. If it doesn't, talk about it some more. But we as staff need to talk about how we can best fit it within our already busy schedules.
Yeah, I know, I hate to, I love that idea, thank you. I would say that even if we had a list of approved projects, that would be.
Yes.
That's like, and it's interesting, like that low hanging fruit would be, take care of like 90% of my questions. And then that last 10% would take probably far too long to organize and pull together, and maybe we never get there, maybe we do, but for me, that would be.
Right.
Yeah.
And I don't think occupancy is feasible.
I
think the number of units is feasible. I don't really care about bedrooms. I want something comparable between city and county, and that's the number of units, and
when he says occupancy, he means things that have been permitted. In other words, where certificates of occupancy have been issued.
I see.
That's what he's talking about, not
The
how many
house is
people,
actually
but-
on the lot.
Yes, it's on there, it's been built, and it's livable.
I see.
So not just,
But that's a building department could help with, correct?
Yes, they could, but first things first, let's start with the low hanging fruit.
Sure, Mr. Ullman and then Mr. Morris.
In this regard to Jackie and Tammy and all of you guys, I know you guys are always reading and sharing information, and learning things from what's going on around the nation, but is there any science or any evidence from other communities on what are good proportions for these different housing? I wouldn't assume it's balanced, where everything is even. So is there, this is the Purdue Extension science-based evidence kind of thing coming out on me, but is there any publications or research that's been done out there by anybody on public dynamics that says that information, or is that?
Not by housing type. I think that there is information that has been circulated about different buckets of cost, 150 to 250 housing supply, 250 to 350 housing supply. So that information we can use to sort of work backwards to say we don't have a healthy supply of this bucket of housing.
That's really
That's what we're looking for.
Very valuable.
Because that's where I see the value of this data that we're asking you guys for, and I think it can be very valuable. But I also see that then down the road, so we have this information, we have these numbers going forward, well, oh yeah, a lot of PUDs are this housing type, that's the half acre or whatever, you know? So now, what do we decide and, oh wait, do we have too much of this? Do we need more of this? How do we decide what bracket does need more? And what is, you know, that's not just for us to make just a willy-nilly decision of like, oh, they need to be even, things like that. So that's where I'm kind of hedging this. So I like, you know.
I get your point. I think it has to do with looking at really detailed census information regarding income and things like that, that we have to do with that. And somebody in the community can do that, not us, right? Like IU could do it or something.
And Tammy?
But I get your point.
Right, I attended a an Indiana land use conference last fall, and it just came on board within the last month, but there's the Indiana Housing Dashboard where you can
Interesting.
I'm looking at it right now, and I think it might be good if like maybe we pull the city data, the county data, and give you all a presentation. Or at least do a live one of that dashboard.
That is,
I think we can break it down on that.
that would be helpful.
Wow.
And yeah, because Bloomington's in there for sure.
And Bloomington has a lot of nuances because as we, you've heard me say before, the Switchyard Park was justified on, in part as a public investment because all those single-family homes surrounding it in the core neighborhoods were available for lower and middle-income families to move into. And subsequently, the prospecting has been done, and I think over 1,000 units have been purchased by either IU Foundation, IU Alumni Association, or IU itself, and they've been taken off the market. So the market is manipulated, and at the same time, people are condemning, for instance, Commissioner Thomas and myself, because prices are going up, and as though it's my fault or your fault.
I didn't make enough land yesterday.
Just
Julie,
amazing.
can we quote you on that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure someone will.
And so these market dynamics are something that are unique to a university town, and they're also very kind of can be manipulated very quickly by vested interests. And so what we know helps us to understand, what forces are at play, what we need to do from a planning perspective, and what needs and niches we need to help fulfill.
Okay.
What I would like to see, and this, I have been doing this as long as you folks have. I keep hearing all these data points, and a lot of them come from Margaret here, okay? And she is one of the best researchers around. She does this for a living, okay? But what we need is for you all to take and put legitimacy on top of that and validate what in fact she says, okay? And so talking points or footnotes or something, just the data she just gave on what IU is doing, as well as others with respect to Switchyard Park. Where is that documented? And can you, as a part of your analysis, document it yourself and therefore bring legitimacy to that data? As opposed to us saying it.
I think this will be helpful to get us all on the same page to say, we
Yes.
agree with this information, this
Yes.
is the goal
And that's where I'm
after
going with
looking
this.
at this
Yes.
information.
And then, and I do have to point out now, Ellisville does its own planning, so that
Yes.
has to be pulled in.
Yep.
Sorry.
Okay, we are
Sorry.
including that one, because that was a question of mine.
Sorry.
I was afraid to ask it.
You know, I say, we need their number two.
I only have one more item on
Oh,
tonight's
yes.
agenda.
Come on,
shall we try it?
please. It's such a long day, please.
Just one of those quick, it's the
Quick
zoning
ones.
name discussion, there was a
Okay.
discussion at ORC, and we
Yes.
have the list of zoning names that the ORC came up with. If we would like to take a look at those, we would like to kind of make the final changes to the CPO zoning map, and we want to make sure we're consistent with everyone's vision for that.
Okay.
So is that?
Perfect.
So this whole section is getting tabled, right?
That is part of the RDC discussion.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah, oh, and yes, the other section is detailed, yes.
Sorry.
So yes, the zoning names that the ORC came up with, I can share those if people would like to go and take a look at those. And then we were asked to evaluate what staff would consider based on what other considerations are out there, if there was anything that could be misconstrued with other planning jurisdictions, for instance. Okay, so we have on here,
Can you set the stage in 25 words or less why we came up with what we came up with?
I feel like I'm gonna have to be on the defense
25
here,
words or less,
Scott.
can you explain?
I feel like I need to play defense here.
it was to discuss
Can you make that a little bigger, please?
Yeah,
I'm so sorry.
the ORC's recommendation.
We're all learning how to use Teams together.
Was to
It's a group.
address the concern for two things. My understanding was there was a concern for some of the naming, including suburban and estate. So we wanted, the ORC voted to change all of the zoning names to include the word residential first.
Yes.
For all of the residential zone properties, and then to include the acreage right after the name. So residential one,
Really, really
residential
helpful.
.67. So this is the ORC recommendation in this column. This is what the CDO currently has those drafted as. So R5, it was Forest Reserve 5, FR 5. So it would be changing to residential 5, so getting rid of the word forest, for instance. There was some other consideration that staff had a little bit of concerns with on the .67, .34, .21, .14. We just want to make sure everyone was on board with solidifying the minimum lot size into the title of the zone names in the event that they cannot subdivide or do something in relation to that lot size. So we have in front of you the ORC column, and if you would like to take a vote or review this information, I can send this out and take a vote at the next meeting.
Cover the staff recommendation one?
So the staff recommendation in this column, I want to show some. Yes, so we tried to change some of the concern language regarding suburban, change that to neighborhood possibly instead. We did have some, like I mentioned, some concern, R5, this one, the city's most dense zone is called R4. And we do get realtors that call and are sometimes confused whether it's a city property or county property. We just don't want there to be any confusion.
So we don't want any for.
Well, we don't, but they have R1 through R4. Okay. So these are regarding acreage, and then theirs is regarding density, so 4 units.
Let's do the first one, Forest 5.
Oh, no.
Okay.
Oh, my God.
Okay, so we can table this to the next meeting if that would be preferred, if you would like further.
I want to look at this. I want to look at this and think about it because I understand the sentiment, but I'm not sure it's met.
Okay, all right.
I'd like to make one comment because I really am a bit indifferent, and I'm sure we can come together, but you touched on my only comment at the ORC, and I just wanted to clarify exactly what I meant is if someone sees a minimum and they don't have that minimum, they might just be like, oh, well, I can't do it and stop. And never contact planning or understand that they have some discretionary measures or there's a variance process. So that, and also at around the beginning of this process in 2016, there was a big focus and lots of discussion of moving away from having the minimum acreage as part of the name. So that was kind of my one arching concern is this could hit some unknown member of the public differently and they'll just throw up their hands and say, oh, I can't do anything and not follow up, but that's on them. But also I think we should at least entertain the fact that that's possible.
Councilor Munson and then Mr. Ullman.
So I like this effort because we all can share a common language and know what we're talking about. And having the minimum built in there is what differentiates these different units. To eliminate confusion with the city, we might call it COR5 rather than just R5. COR4. County, CO for county.
I like that.
And I think that'll help the public as well. but I appreciate the effort that you've made to do this, and I do think we need to ponder.
Mr. Ullman, next.
When you first brought that up and really explained what the Rs were, I really liked it, and then when you threw in the fact that the city uses an R, but the number means something different, it kind of threw me. But, Jack, you got cut off, when you were explaining that spreadsheet there. So the column that is staff recommendation, that is kind of what the office has what they would like to see, or what they thought of changing it, and then the ORC was the one that kind of came up with the R line. Is that my understanding?
Yes, and then this is the CEO draft map.
That's what's currently.
Comparison, this is what's currently.
Yeah,
And then
and that's what
this is the
actually
actual.
currently on the land right now.
But yeah, some of these are new zoning districts, so.
Would it be possible for you to, because I didn't see that here unless I missed it somewhere, would it be possible for you to send that out so that we can kind of look at it, more tangibly in our hand?
Yes,
Thank you.
Commissioner Cummings.
I would say I would appreciate seeing a list of Ellisville zones and city zones names, just their names. We talked about this when we had a co-meeting with the City Plan Commission years ago, a long time ago. And one of the things we talked about was colors on the map and naming conventions. And at the time, they were not going to use R. I remember that specifically because I wrote it in my book. Oh, we should do R. And I held on to that. But so that would be helpful. And so my question is, if the staff recommendation came to us before the ORC met, so is that staff recommendation changed or is it the same?
The staff recommendation is based on the ORC discussion, so.
It was based on the ORC, okay, thank you.
So we should respond to the ORC.
Thank you, I appreciate that, and that's gonna be helpful for me to see that. I think that would be really good. The last thing I wanna touch on is that as it appears in the CDO with the graphic of the table of zones, you know what I'm talking about, right? There is the piece that says residential and then it says rural. And what has to be clear is that rural is residential, because I got asked again at Baskey, oh, well, that's not residential anymore. No, it's still residential.
No, it goes on and on.
If you add that word rural, please add residential back to it. And if you feel like you have to have those two, I don't even know that that's needed because it's all residential and I feel like, and my note on, I understand the issue of not putting the acreage on this piece, but at the same time, that's why it's there. It's important enough that to have that number, and anybody who sees, 5, residential 5, is going to know that that's the minimum lot size. But just like 2.5 or even 1, you also know that I could try to do a PUD on this property, or maybe I want to come in and do a zoning proposal because I want to do a subdivision here. Just like anything else, you have to name what it is.
Yes.
And people know they can come for a variance or a petition or whatever it is they want. So I feel like the name's important and that number is important because it is signifying what it is. Whether it stays that way is up to what the petitioner asks for and what this body advises, et cetera. So.
Well, is this, do you have any other items you'd like to cover with us?
House Bill 1108 is on the governor's desk. I don't believe he signed it quite yet, but I did want to let you know that I've been contacted by WFIU to discuss that. And so I was planning on discussing
Well,
that.
thank you for your work in that area. I thought that you did a wonderful job of representing Monroe County. So thank you for that.
Yeah, you did a great job. And
Yes.
is the FIU thing like a new addition or is it just a new story and they just had questions for you?
They're not, they said that it's not their protocol to send questions in advance. They want to bring a videographer, so.
Oh, okay, so it's TIU, but they're just asking, it's not the call-in show. I was
No,
gonna say,
it's not
kinda
the
late
show.
for that. Okay, all right, good. You'll be fine.
You'll be great.
Oh my God,
Yeah,
you're gonna be great. Everybody's gonna fall in love with Jackie.
Yes, Jackie's lovable.
Thank you for your
Yeah.
hard work. All of the staff really,
So-
I know everybody chipped in on that and really made it happen. I was so proud to sit in that hearing room with you and Kelsey, Martha Miller. I mean, it was a cadre of people who are professionals, who understand the issues that make Monroe County unique. And it was really good to be there. So thank you.
Yeah.
Proud of you.
Yes.
I want to express the same. And also Jared Hahn, he's our president of the county surveyor affiliate meeting, and he talked about kind of the bigger picture of this kind of might undermine our ability to conduct our business and address our affairs accordingly from a local level. So I actually spoke with him earlier today and thanked him for testifying.
It'll be interesting to see what they're gonna do next, because this is the beginning. 30% of the legislators are builders or developers, so that's where we're going.
Right.
Giddy up. Giddy up.
Unintended.
Well, we don't,
I don't think this, nice, fun intended.
we're reclaiming land. It used to be called wetlands, but now it can be built on.
Yes.
We put a lot of investment.
I don't know.
He made a motion.
I made a motion to adjourn.
Oh my God, I wish I'd heard that. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks all of you for sharing your concerns and good ideas about how to get the basic data that we need out there. And the state dashboard.
Yeah, have you been to it?
No, I haven't. I can't wait to go.
Wow. Yeah, people I know believe that, how do they're like, I know. They're like, how long, we're on like,